by the World Evangelical Alliance here in Bonn in mid-2018. And one of its missions is to mobilize Christians at key strategic moments for global sustainability efforts. And one could say that the United Nations Environment Assembly was such a strategic moment. And this is why we were also very much engaged in Nairobi. And also the World Evangelical Alliance Sustainability Center has the mission to inform the global sustainability community that Christians care about the environment, what we call creation care, and that we are willing to actively contribute to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. The World Evangelical Alliance Sustainability Center had the observer status at the United Nations Environment Assembly, and we participated in the activities of the Faith for Earth initiative. Matthias Böning, the director of the center, as well as Chris Elizara, also the director and also the head of the Creation Care Task Force, were representing the center in Nairobi. And because of the very rich and inspiring experiences that they had, they decided to host a webinar with other faith leaders to reflect on their engagement at the United Nations Environment Assembly. And the United Nations Environment Assembly, I guess you all know, is the highest level decision-making body on issues of the environment. And the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, is quite unique in their engagement of faith leaders with the Faith for Earth initiative. And I think a lot of credit goes to the leadership and the vision of Dr. Iyad Abu-Mogli, who is also present with us today as a speaker. And as part of the Faith for Earth initiative, many faith-based organizations participated at the United Nations Environment Assembly, and they hosted side events and engaged with policymakers and also engaged with each other and had a very lively, one could say, exchange. And this is also why we came up with the idea of hosting this reflection webinar. And so looking at the agenda that we have today, we will first hear from Matthias and Chris, the evangelical perspective of how they reflect on the United Nations Environment Assembly. And then we are very honored to have Sheikh Mohammed Khan from Kenya with us. He's the executive director of the Kenya Interfaith Youth Network and member of the Interreligious Council of Kenya, and he will speak about the Muslim perspective. And afterwards, Solomon Belay Faris from the representative office in Addis Ababa from the Baha'i International Community will present to us the Baha'i reflections. Then we have Reverend Dr. Rachel Mash from South Africa presenting the Anglican perspective, and afterwards Rabbi Jonathan from the Interfaith Center for Sustainable Development, which is based in Jerusalem, and he will present the Jewish perspective. And last but not least, we have Ganga Narayan Das from the Govatran Eco Village. Please excuse my pronunciation. And he will present the Hindu perspective. So we have a very, very diverse setup, and we are so happy actually that this can take place, and we are very, very much looking forward to hear all your inputs, and we are very thankful that you join us today and are part of this interfaith journey kind of. And last but not least, we have Iyad Abu-Mogli, who is the principal coordinator for the Faith for Earth initiative from UNEP, and he will also present his reflections of how he perceived the faith activities at UNIA. And at the end, we will have a time for questions and answers. During the webinar itself, if you have some very important questions maybe of comprehension, then you can type them in the chat. But otherwise, we will not get questions and answers. But please write them down and ask them at the end. So, and yeah, we will record the audio of the meeting, and so just to let you know. So now, I think without further ado, I will give the floor to Matthias Böning, the director of the World Evangelical Alliance Sustainability Center. All these words are so long. And he will get started with presenting.
And thank you,
The Evangelical
Lillian,
Reflections of
for
the
this
United
nice
Nations
introduction
Environment
to this
Assembly.
webinar.
Thank you,
Hello,
Matthias.
everybody, and good to see you again on this digital way, or at least you see me. Hopefully, I'm gonna see you later on as well. I want to start with our reflections, and Lily, do you have my slides? And you can just put them up. So I share my 5 minutes with Chris, so I'm going to be very quick. And well, it was a big privilege to be attending UNIA, which defines itself, as we had it the last time in the preparatory webinar, which defines itself as the world's highest level decision-making body on the environment. It was a great delight and an honor to be there amongst the distinguished participants of this conference, but still a realization that came to our hearts again in the aftermath of the conference is really coming from Psalm 24, and it connects with our belief and with our faith, where we read, the earth is the Lord's. So in the end, when we talk about environmental issues, when we talk about the earth is the Lord's, and we are just called to be good stewards. And so that was something that came to our heart in the aftermath of UNIA, because it's just something different if you look at the earth as ours, or if you look at the earth as given to us. So you don't mess with things that were given to you. You maybe mess with your own stuff. So also looking at the results of UNIA, we have to say, well, maybe they would have been a bit different if we really understand ourselves, if humans, if mankind understands itself as good stewards of the earth that it has been given. The second thought is we need real transformation. And that connects with our faith, because in our faith also we learn a lot about something that is ending and something Jesus himself announced a new kingdom, a new heaven and a new earth. So something ends and something new begins. Even we believe that in our own lives, that something old ends and something new comes. And when we talk about innovation, which was one of the central topics of UNIA 4, we have a nice word coming from the Bible by Jesus himself, who said, new wine must be put into new wineskins. You don't put new wine into old wineskins. So new requires new. New times require new ways. And this is something, at least for us, that we take away as a reflection point, that we need to push for these new ways and new instruments and new solutions much, much more. Well, for us, Faith for Earth, the initiative was in itself an innovation. It's just something different in a context where member states come together and we stay on that level of political discussions. If suddenly a completely different level comes into the picture, which is the faiths and the worldviews that people have and in many cases that connect many people living in various countries. So we talk about a level that is spanning over the level of the member states, and that in itself was an innovation that we saw at EMEA 4, and that brought in just a special taste and a special feeling for something new. In the end, I want to end with the point that there's a big thankfulness in us. We are thankful that faith communities were welcome at the table and really had a legitimate seat at the table, and that, as Lily already put it, goes back to Iyad's leadership and his vision to really push this Faith for Earth in the way he did. So we were all benefiting from this leadership and from this context. So I just want to mention the first 2 points of our next steps and the perspectives for future work. Chris will then take over from me. Obviously, there's a lot that we need to now bring to our network with the World Evangelical Alliance. And as you may know, World Evangelical Alliance represents 600 million Christians throughout the world. So there's so much we actually have to communicate into our own network and to let people know what happens in Nairobi, and to let people know about the networks that are there, about the initiatives that are there, and to encourage them to link in. So that is something that we will do. Chris will talk about this in a little bit more detail. And what we can really say from our side is that there will be continuous support of and engagement in UNEP's Faith for Earth initiative. We think it's a great initiative. We think it's great to connect with all of you and to share our perspectives and to learn about our perspectives. And so thank you from my side, and I hand over to Chris.
Hi, it's good to be here. And could you flick up the continued slides? Thank you. You just go through them all, and I'll just go one at a time very quickly. So the Faith for Earth Coalition, as already been mentioned, Iyad's going to probably talk more about that. And it's already been said that we support that 100%, and we'll continue to look for leadership, collective leadership and leadership from Iyad, and then we'll play a role in the development of that coalition going forward, which we're really excited about. The next point. The other part that we were really excited about was and I think everyone experienced this there, the increasing recognition of faith communities in global debates like this. And it was mentioned many different times throughout the week, the role of faith in the dialogue. And we were at the table. And so I think we want to continue to walk in that regard, be good contributors to the dialogue. And I think even more so, my next point will kind of elaborate on that, is be more prepared. Actually, my next point after that is be more prepared from the WEA perspective, to engage with our presence there at a level of policy engagement, statement engagement, and the multiple statements that were worked on. And that means becoming more prepared, working over the next couple of months. We were able to do some things, but knowing that in 23 months there was a pathway to engage, we will start to work with our constituents, our scientists, our activists, our community, to really engage with the UNEA coming up in the future. So that's a back of amount that talks about our preparation. Sorry, and the other points that are kind of being listed here are other takeaways. I think in addition to preparing for the policy side of UNEA, we also have some practical things that we can do and we're taking away. And we're really excited about the renewable energy working group, that there was interest in that following our presentation, and we're really excited to pick that up. We really haven't picked it up yet, but we will pick that up and start running with that going forward. And I think there's going to be other opportunities for working groups that are going to focus on issues and practical outcomes for us and for the entire faith community. In addition to the energy working group, we also are excited about the Faith Invest and Faith Cities as a finance outcome to working forward on these issues. And then we also are very excited about the Plastic Global Challenge. And that's a partnership that kind of came out of UNEA and can grow with other partners in UNEA. So we're very excited about those. So those are our next steps, and those are our essential takeaways. And we're really looking forward to, this is not a one-off. This is actually an ongoing commitment. And next time we'll be really prepared to fully engage in all different levels of UNEA. So thanks for your time on this, and I'm going to turn it back to the host.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris and Matthias. This was very insightful. And I'm excited to hear from our other faith leaders, even though Sheikh Mohammed is not here, so we will have to skip, but Solomon is also not here yet. So Rachel, could I ask you to take over and start your presentation, presenting an Anglican perspective? Okay, we see that Rachel also has some technical difficulties. Then let's continue with Jonathan, Rabbi Jonathan. I think your microphone is working, and if you would unmute your microphone and enable your webcam.
Okay, great.
We would be very excited to hear from the Jewish
hello,
perspective.
shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi Jonathan.
So I appreciate what Matthias and Chris just shared.
Shalom, hello.
And enjoyed meeting both of them as well as everyone else on the call in Nairobi, and glad that everyone had safe travels home. I first of all, shared in Genesis 2:15, the Bible teaches that, and God placed the human being in the Garden of Eden to serve it and conserve it. So that relates to previous verses in the book of Genesis, that on how God said to people to be fruitful and multiply and conquer the earth and dominate the animals and the birds and the other species. So it's important that an ecological awareness of how we live on God's creation emerges, and I'm very happy to be part of it with you in trying to manifest that vision. So in the first slide, first of all, I'd like to celebrate the success of the Faith for Earth initiative at the UN Environment Assembly. My sense is that it was a very important gathering, perhaps the largest gathering of the year, of people working on religion and ecology and trying to promote a more sustainable planet for current and future generations. I was impressed by the number of events that took place, the number of side events, and I also want to express my gratitude to Dr. Iyad Abu Mogli for your dedicated efforts and that of you, of U, and Pauline and others on your team who really facilitated an important event. Oh yeah, sorry, I see it myself, but I just click start
sorry
sharing.
to interrupt.
Okay.
Do you have a webcam that you could switch
So so that's, and we can now go to the second slide.
Great, thanks.
So a second question that I want to put out there for you is, how might the faith voice be further amplified at the next UN Environment Assembly? And as I was walking on Friday, I noticed that there was a press room where a lot of journalists were gathered. And I believe that this was the sort of the main press conference of the assembly, and they were presumably reporting on resolutions that took place and that were passed. I would like to put out there that there should be an interfaith presence. There should be an interfaith press conference, because it was great to have everyone who came to all the different sessions, and I even saw that there were a couple of articles that I'm aware of that were published about the Faith for Earth initiative, including from the Religions News Service, and about the Interfaith Vigil that took place on Monday. I would think that if there were a specific interfaith press conference at the UN Environment Assembly, that would generate even more media coverage of the interfaith work. So that's one reflection I have about sort of how to amplify the voice. A second would be sort of raising a question of how to facilitate greater interaction between people who are coming as religious representatives and the delegates, especially the high-level delegations. I had the good fortune of meeting with the Israeli ambassador to Kenya, who also served as the lead of the Israeli delegation. And I know that Chris and Reverend Rachel met with members of the American delegation. I would wonder how there could be bilateral meetings, or even how an interfaith group of people could have specific meetings with people with high-level delegations from many different countries, especially the countries that are more obstinate in certain areas of the process. And that's another idea that I have. Next slide, please. So, and then another question is, how might Faith for Earth expand its reach beyond the UN Environment Assembly? There's so much work to be done, and I know at a previous conference, Iad mentioned about the possibility of holding interfaith conferences with high-level religious representation. So that's one thing that, I discussed with him about the possibility of holding regional conferences. So that's something I put out there, to have many such events around the world, and if they're regional, then there's less travel involved for participants. My organization, the Interfaith Center for Sustainable Development, is putting on a conference in Jerusalem on October 28th. We're hoping to have about 200 people attend. It's going to be focused on theological education and sustainability. So if anyone's in Jerusalem at that time, then we'd be happy to have you come. Next slide, please. Okay, great. Oh, I see, and I can move the slides. So those are several reflections.
I think this was your last slide.
And I think it also would be positive for a number of us to have monthly calls, and I applaud WEA's efforts to follow through with a renewable energy working group. And so I think there's, hopefully these collaborations will continue to grow and to blossom.
Thank you, Jonathan. This was really inspiring. You have some great ideas. Thanks very much. I will hand over to Rachel now, because Sheikh Mohammed and Solomon are still not with us. So, Rachel, are you ready to present? I can hear something, but not very loud. Maybe can you turn up your audio?
On the highest. It's on the highest.
You have to be closer to the microphone, I think. We can hardly hear you. It's on the highest, you
Is
said.
that better?
Right.
So,
Yes, that's much better. Great, Rachel.
I can see myself. I
Thanks
don't
for
know.
being with us. If you can switch on your webcam, is that possible?
Got it?
You have to click on Start Sharing.
Are we ready to roll? Yeah, so
It is
good
in the
afternoon,
yes.
everybody.
Yes.
Nice to be in contact again. Glad we're not
Yes.
causing any carbon emission by meeting.
Right.
Yeah, it was
Rachel.
extremely good to meet up with people. I think for us, particularly as Anglicans, because it's the first time we are part of the UNEP process. We just got accredited. So it was great to meet brothers and sisters from across the globe, and especially like Dr. Koshi, who came through from South India. So that was one of our highlights. And next slide, I think the highlights for me were the small groups, the meeting, being part of the women's delegation was quite good, meeting inspiring women leaders, especially to meet Joyce and Suya. I found her very inspiring. And also I got to attend the women networking breakfast with the women ministers. So that was very good to make contact through the stakeholders. And the plastic side event was excellent. In fact, we're having a follow-up in today's time. Okay. And the next slide. Yes.
Sorry, Rachel.
Yeah.
We can hardly hear you. Hardly hear you. Is there some noise in the background or something?
Okay. Yes, then the
you
Faith
should,
for the Earth
can,
obviously
speak
was
up a
a big
little.
highlight, and to meet people from the other faith groups. You can put the other slide.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I thought Dr. Ayad was incredible, and the Chinese, the young Catholic youth were really, really good. I think the Catholic Church is very well understanding of the United Nations processes and things, so they will be a very good partner for us. The big question I had to myself is, can we have any impact at all at what is happening inside the room? It feels like there were all these side events, there's all these NGOs, we're milling around the outside of the United Nations and speaking to each other. Are we having any purpose? The United Nations is not a conference process. So if we want to have any impact, we would need to be involved from at least 18 months before the conference. And even if we were, does it actually have any purpose? I mean, I was so shocked to realize that the only decisions they make are by consensus. So fantastic resolutions that India put in on single-use plastic just gets overturned because America decides they don't like it. So the question for me is this. Should we go to United Nations conferences? Should we spend all our money getting there? Should we spend carbon emissions getting there? Is there anything one can achieve by being at the United Nations conference? Or should we rather say we want to meet as people of faith, let's have faith for earth, and we meet when we want to meet. But I was left with the big question of really, is there any point us being at United Nations? Does one have any influence at all? I'm not sure. That is my question. You can hear me. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Rachel, for this input and for this very nice picture at the end. Now we will hand over to, you can mute your microphone, Rachel, and switch off your webcam, because I will hand over to Ganga from India. I think he's in India, and he will explain to us the Hindu perspective on the Unia 4. Ganga, can you hear me? And yes, great, we can see you.
There was a common theme that I could perceive amongst all the presenters in the Unia 4 was in the Faith for Earth sessions that there is a one creator, and all of us are his children. So irrespective of what faith we follow or what faith we don't follow, so that remains eternal truth. And can you move the next slide, please? Yeah. So just a couple of years back, 200 years back, we were never talking about sustainability. It was natural, so because there was no need about it. So people were living in harmony with nature, and everything was supplied. People used to do planting trees and do conventional agriculture, farming, and live close to nature basically. So the common theme is that people cared for everything and every being. So which is on the contrast is little bit missing in the current scenario. If I would say waste did not exist, and many spoke about it, and everything had a purpose. So whatever we call it waste or things got used back. Next slide, please. So moving forward in the present scenario, so we have technological advancement, and then technology essentially gives rise to convenience, and with convenience we tend to get kind of little lazy, and with laziness our intentions, it's basically a normal principle. Our intentions get altered, and then we no longer look towards the thing that could be used, but then it ends up in a situation like we call it as use and throw. So we chose convenience over everything. We chose convenience over transportation, over health. We eat, we choose anything and we eat anything. So this use and throw concept is a foreign concept in the sense that we use and throw pens, plates, glasses, and then it didn't stop there. It moved to use and throw babies, abortion, what we call. Then we use and throw spouse, what we call it divorce, and then we use and throw parents, and then they land up in old age homes. So it's not only that, so all these things have slowly created a selfish agenda in each and every one of us, which we had forgotten to see that how these small things could affect our global problems. So they have in essence created, so if you talk about waste, so waste has created a global problem. So in terms of kind of, you can say, liquid waste landed in water bodies, oceans, it spoils the whole aquatic lives. Polluted air lands up in atmosphere. It affects the global temperatures. Plastic ends up everywhere, pollutes the whole environment, and so on. So basically, the convenience thing had made us kind of lazy, and then we have to kind of come out of this comfort zone, and at least individually and personally we should try to implement this, like as Dr. Achal mentioned, that are we making an impact by meeting all together? So I would say that if at least myself I change and people looking at me have an impact, so I would call that a creating an impact. So it would not stop there, and it would multiply, because it starts from me and then slowly to my family, to my environment, and so on, to my ambience, and other people whom I meet and discuss. Next slide, please. Looking forward, so I would bring in three perspectives here: is education, culture, and devotion. Our scriptures, Hindu scriptures, what we call it as Bhagavad Gita, explains about these three things very deeply. Education, like the current education what we have, can bring in maximum, or can create maximum a earning member. And education, as on date, does not produce any cultural aspect. So when we add culture to the education of education, then it can create an impact, in the sense that if an educated person need not be a gentleman, or need not be a great person, but then a person having a culture of care, caring for oneself, caring for the society, caring for the environment, would actually can make an impact. But when we add education and culture, and then devotion to that, so then it surpasses the boundaries of what we call it as localized aspect, like as Dr. Achal was mentioning, that are we making an impact? So the devotion is a exaggeration of love, I would say. So if I love my family, I would do anything for them. If I love my environment, I would do anything for the environment. So it basically escalates my expression of caring for someone and loving someone. So can you press the arrow once again, please? So in the Hindu scriptures, we have one Sri Ishopanishad, where it mentions that everything in the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for oneself, which are set aside as one's quota, and one should not usurp others' things. One may live for 100 years working in that way, for that sort of work will not bind him to the law of karma, its laws of nature. There is no alternative to this way for man. So when a man lives in harmony with nature and others, so he appreciates the existence of others, and then others' existence contribute to his own living. So similar thing we have replicated, or we could say a model eco-village we have prepared in Govardhan eco-village in Maharashtra. It's a short distance from the airport, about 2 hours drive from the airport. So where we care for everything and every being. So it's a zero waste model. We don't produce any waste, in the sense that every waste that is produced is recycled back. So you call it wastewater, you call it solid waste, or food waste, or you call it plastic waste. So plastic waste is converted back to oil, and that oil is used for other heating purposes. So in a sense that whenever we have a global approach to such a thing, so basically nature operates in cyclic manner. So everything is a product of one thing, is a waste of that particular process, but then it becomes an input to the next process. So unless we close the loop for everything that we are producing in the world, so we will land up in an unsustainable world. So we will have to find solutions where things close the loop. So whatever we are producing, it has to have everything has a end of life cycle, and at the end of life cycle of that particular thing must get back to a process. so that becomes a raw material or an input to the next process. So such a thing has been tried in Govardhan Eco-Village. I welcome each and every one of you to go to our website. It's www.ecovillage.org.in, or you can make a Google search, Govardhan Eco-Village, you would find. And if possible, please make a visit. We'll be very happy to see you there. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. It was very nice, and this picture is very nice. Thanks for your presentation, Ganga. Now I will hand over to Solomon, who has just joined us on his mobile phone. Solomon, are you ready to speak? Let's see. You should enable your microphone on top of the slides. It's a small green button. Okay.
Maybe I can quickly chip in that Solomon has contacted me via WhatsApp and said internet in Ethiopia is down, and he is trying to connect via his mobile phone. So that's a little bit of the problem we have here. And so we're still waiting a few more seconds and try and bring Solomon in. So he represents the Baha'i International Community, and we have some sound. Solomon, can you hear us?
No.
Unfortunately, we don't seem to hear Solomon. Solomon, try and speak up again. Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay.
So one question to everybody. Solomon called me on a WhatsApp call, and I'm trying to hold my phone against my laptop. And if you could raise your hand if you can hear Solomon. So Solomon, please say one sentence.
Hello, my name is Solomon.
Okay, Chris can hear you, Ganga can hear you. I think we go for it. Okay. I think people can hear you. Solomon, just make sure to speak up very loudly if possible.
All right. Good afternoon, friends. I'm sorry I was not able to connect so well. On time, I checked the connection yesterday, but somehow today it failed me. Anyways, I will be trying to be brief on my presentation. This is the first point, so are you able to follow? Yes.
Yeah, okay, it's on.
All right. So my first slide is on the reflection on Faith for Earth. I felt it was a success since it's the beginning that faith groups made together to concentrate on the environment. So I feel it has a big success in terms of bringing many faith groups together. We were able to get to know each other. We were able to share insights. In fact, as you can see, we have started to work together. That's a success for me. So it also shows how faith groups can be a force for change. And as you know, we have also created a network. We have now a WhatsApp network. This webinar itself is a testimony to what we can do, through networking and creating, coming together. The challenge I taught very briefly, which we are faced with, is in terms of infusing a sort of new spirit to the discourse. As faith groups, I also already mentioned this in our larger group in Nairobi. As faith groups, we should be able, this is an honest discussion amongst us. We should be able to somehow infuse a new spirit, a new insight based on our common traditions or common teachings. This, I feel, could be, for example, like the existence of the soul, tapping the power of the soul, of the spirit, in terms of creating value systems that help us live or lead a sustainable life. So we need to consult on these issues, and also, developing spiritual qualities, educating, working on spiritual qualities that will help people to really be friendly to the environment. Basically, the Baha'i writings on nature, we have a number of extensive writings from our both treaties and original writings. We earnestly believe that nature in its essence is the embodiment of God's name, the maker or the creator. Or in another sense, nature is God's will, and this is expression in and through the contingent world. So, if nature in essence is the embodiment of God's word, what is the problem that lies in this more environmental crisis? We believe it is the moral question of consumption and excessive materialism. And of course, excessive materialism can always be encountered through spiritual teachings and the upliftment of the spirit. That's why we really ask people to focus on empowering people in terms of spirituality. Humanity, as my slide shows, humanity would be best and most effectively served by pursuing united actions that is informed by the best available scientific evidence and grounded in spiritual or moral principles, and thoughtfully, of course, revising action in the light of experience. So we need to come together, study our writings, our common traditions, and make these principles, spiritual principles, inform our actions, whatever action we are taking, whether it be, cleaning the environment or planting trees. Those actions should be informed with the spiritual principles. And then, of course, we need to come together and reflect those actions in terms of our spiritual principles. So the last point I would like to make is, just to introduce you to what the Baha'i communities are doing and would like to do in the future. Basically, our community building process has three mainstays, three pillars. In fact, the first one, which I may not discuss more, but the three ones are the children moral education. We have junior youth empowerment program and study circles. Particularly, the junior youth empowerment program has a service component, whereby junior youth across the world, in Africa, have a particular activities on assisting their community in terms of cleaning their environment, planting trees or whatever activities. But basically, the foundation is education. Once children or the youth are empowered in terms of education, particularly with moral education, we believe and hope that they will start to live a disciplined life that will help. The environment well. So I will end my brief presentation through an assurance that if we have unity of thought in world undertakings, the consummation of which will alone be witnessed. So in our writings, there is an assurance, there is a certainty that if we really come together in our world undertakings, which will be witnessed very soon, the world will be a better place. That is really unlike any other faith tradition. we have the hope and the vision that the world will be a better place. And actually, I invite all of you to visit our temples across the world, and also the Bible Center in Haifa, Israel, how we really work towards improving the environment in terms of our planning and implementing our project. Thank you so much, and if there is any question, I'll be happy to entertain.
Thank you very much, Solomon, and thank you for this very encouraging assurance at the end of your presentation. We will immediately switch to Iyad now because Sheikh Mohammed is not able to join us. So we will listen to our last presentation from Iyad, the Principal Coordinator of the Faith.
Thank you, Lillian.
United Nations
Do you all hear me?
Thank you, Iyad, for joining us.
Right. So, well, first of all, a big thank you to the World Evangelical Alliance Sustainability Center for organizing such a webinar in less than 2 weeks after UNIA. I wouldn't have been able to do so to invite everybody to reflect on UNIA. So a big thank you for doing this. And again, thank you all for coming to UNIA and for attending the Faith for Earth dialogue. And thank you for all the pouring letters of appreciation that I have been receiving over the past week or 10 days. I'm very touched, actually, and very humbled by your words of appreciation and words of encouragement. I wouldn't have been able to do it had that not been your own conviction of the importance of the role of faith in environmental issues. So thank you very much for all of that. I believe after listening to you, I will be switching between my presentation and reflections on your reflections, and probably giving some sort of, not answers, but assurances of how we will be moving forward and how we will be responding to all of your priority areas, concerns, challenges that you have put in front of us, and the original idea of the Faith for Earth and the project that we are running. So to start with just some statistical background, the first slide presents how many accredited organizations we have registered just a month or so before UNIA. And this is a great success to the Faith for Earth initiative, because when we started a year ago, we only had 8 organizations accredited to UNEP. Actually, only one of them used to attend the meetings. But today we have 39 accredited organizations, and that was during a period of a few months. And I am sure in 2019 we will have probably double of that number when the word starts going out and everybody starts learning that we can do a lot together. We had 135 registered faith leaders. However, the number of attendees exceeded 220, so we had not only faith leaders but also interested member states and other stakeholders participating. As you witnessed, the room was almost full on a daily basis. We had 11 sessions with 63 speakers. This is from the Faith for Earth part. However, UNIA in general passed 26 resolutions and decisions, We had the privileges of having 5 heads of states, 157 ministers and deputy ministers, in total 5,000 attendees or participants, representing 179 countries, and resulting in one ministerial declaration. So in all accounts and reflections and feedback from countries and member states and stakeholders, this probably was the most successful UNIA we have ever had. Let me now go into the second slide, which I will pass over very quickly because you all have the agenda of the different things that happened during UNIA. We had enormous number of high-level events, leadership dialogue, partnerships on marine and litter, SDG innovation talks, the Cities Summit, our own dialogue, the Global Environment Outlook, the launch of the 6th edition of the GEO, the Innovation Expo, the Science Policy Business Forum, the Resource Efficiency and Inclusive Green Economies Summit, the World Environment Situation Room, the Water and Sanitation for All, Tradition and Innovation, Unlocking Resource Efficiency and Inclusive Green Economies, the High Ambition Alliance on Chemicals and Waste, the Switch Africa Green event, the Young Champions of the Earth, innovation or innovative policies and solutions for circular economy, and the Women Ministers Breakfast. So an enormous number of events and activities that we could have engaged in a much better way than we did during our meeting. And the reason for that is our late ride, let me say, on the wagon of UNIA. It was very late when we decided to organize the Faith for Earth dialogue. It was very late when we had organizations accredited. It was very late when the invitations went out, and so on. But this is, as you all know, this is the first year of the Faith for Earth initiative. We were established in January 2018. So to have all of this done in 1 year is, I believe, a remarkable achievement that we are proud of, and we are setting the launching pad for a larger and more effective initiative, or let me say partnership, with our faith-based organizations. The sessions that we have had together and the titles and specific focus of these sessions actually were very helpful for us to identify the priority areas where we should focus. For example, if we go to the next slide, it will show us that we discussed Lillian, I believe I'm moving faster than you are on, or if I can, I don't know how to change the slides, but if you go to, please, Lillian, are you there? Yeah. No, please go to slide number 6.
Yes, I am here.
So the sessions and the titles of the sessions we had actually will inform us of the priorities that we should focus on. For example, environmental justice and sustainability, which is the main theme for UNIA 4, sustainable consumption and production. climate change and climate justice is another priority, including work on energy efficiency or renewable energy, lifestyles and behaviors and ethics and values, the trash to treasures, the circular economy, and how we involve faith organizations in that. And of course, sharing of success stories and experiences where we can focus on South-South cooperation and South-North or triangular cooperation. So these are very important to inform us. During the meetings or the Faith for Earth dialogue, a number of working groups have been self-established, like the working group on energy, education, and youth. And hopefully we can have one on faith-based investment or Faith Invest. So these are working groups that we will be supporting and working with. You know, as everybody was saying, Reverend Rachel mentioned, are we effective? How can we be effective? What is our added value? And how can we make impact? I believe, as I mentioned, this is only the first step. We now have a community of faith-based organizations sitting on the table or at the table with policymakers. We can prepare for UNIA 5 starting today. We can engage with member states from wherever we are in our own countries. We can engage with other stakeholders and major groups. And as you heard Alexander Uras saying that we will be establishing a group or a subgroup for faith-based organizations. So this is a huge achievement. We never had that. So we will be recognized as a standalone group or subgroup. And then, of course, participate in the PrEP CPR, which is the meeting that took place before UNIA, which is actually the kitchen for all the decisions and resolutions. You are all, as accredited organizations, are on the mailing list of the Governance Affairs Office. That means you will be receiving first-hand and immediate submissions from member states of resolutions, of meetings. You will be invited to attend personally or virtually meetings of the CPR, quarterly meetings. You will be receiving reports. So the game has changed. It is not going to be a meeting that we invite you to attend at the end of the year, but it is an engagement policy, an engagement strategy that you will be engaged through your accreditation process. So you will only hear from me on activities related to the Faith for Earth initiative, but concerning the decision-making process and all of UNEP and UN Assembly, you will hear that from the Governance Affairs Office and the Civil Society Unit. So you are on the map now, and this is a huge achievement that will pave the road for us to be even more successful in UNIA 5. I agree that we could have more visibility during the week of UNIA and through the press conferences, but to tell you the truth, I have worked so hard to have a few interviews done, and actually I was told nobody cares to have a conference or a press conference for faith-based organizations because everybody wants to follow their member states and highlight what they do. They I mean, the organizers, especially the media and communications people, didn't believe that we will have an impact. So we were not given the priority that we deserved. But since we have had that success, now they're coming to us and saying, how can we collaborate and cooperate and make this a bigger success? So in UNIA 5, we will have dedicated media outlets. Now what happens after the assembly, and this is more of reflection to what you have been mentioning. First of all, I have so many meetings and missions aligned for me. The first one is in 10 days, where I will be at the EU, the Development Cooperation, DEFCO, where they have requested me to do two things. The first one is to organize a capacity building workshop for their own staff from the different divisions and units and departments of the EU on why faith for development. So in 12 days, I will be in Brussels doing exactly that. The second one, they've asked me to help them organize a global conference organized by the EU between their divisions and departments and faith leaders and faith-based organizations in June. So this is with the EU. Tomorrow, I have a teleconference with the government of the Netherlands and the main university there to discuss how do we prepare for COP26, I believe, which will be held in the Netherlands. So they are thinking, a year and a half or more before COP26 to make sure that the faith component is actually integrated in the discussions of the COP. In June, I will be going to an international discussion or workshop on the Abrahamic religions' take on environmental sustainability. So bringing about 50 people of influence from the 3 different Abrahamic religions to discuss how we reflect on the work between faith and environment. On the 1st of May, I will be going to Denmark to attend the International Partnership on Religion and Development, PARD, General Assembly. And here we have a very good opportunity to add environment as their 4th pillar of importance, because they focus on gender, health, peace and security. So environment is not on their radar screen. So I was invited to make that pitch on the environment. In July, of course, definitely. Okay, I will be faster. So in July, we will have the high-level political forum where all member states attend and they discuss sustainability and achieving sustainable development goals. And we are organizing what we call the Kofi Annan Dialogue. It will have one component on the planet and environment. So this is sort of our involvement. Of course, we have the project that we have started, the Faith for Earth project, which will work on resource mobilization with donors and so on. We will engage the faith-based organizations on the or in the campaigns that the UNEP runs on an annual basis. For example, the World Environment Day, and this year it's on air pollution. on the Think, Eat, Save campaign, on waste reduction, beat plastic pollution, and so many initiatives that or campaigns that we launch. So we are, as I mentioned, this is the first launching pad of our collaboration and partnership. And of course, I would welcome, as always, your feedback, your suggestions, your invitations to be with you in webinars and meetings and whatever it takes to make this even a bigger success with everybody. Because I do not expect that we will be doing it ourselves alone, but we can only do it in partnership with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Iyad. Very interesting and very many dates that are relevant, I think, for many of us who are attending right now. So thanks very much for letting us know. And now I will hand over to Matthias, because he has been able to assist Sheikh Mohammed technically, and Sheikh Mohammed will
Sheikh
very
Mohammed,
quickly
if you could
join
be
us
very quick, because
in
we
this
are
way.
already over the time, but we try to plug you in by WhatsApp call. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much. First and foremost, thank you, Dr. Ian, for all the information. From what I learned at Union 4, there's some things that I'd like to bring forward. First and foremost, as religious leaders, we should identify which thematics we are going to address, because we are so scattered around and we want to address everything. We should first and foremost focus on which thematics we address. Secondly, we should develop materials in relation to the scriptures, so that we know that how does religion back up the environmental issues. Thirdly, we should start our disassociation from the CSOs, because we found that most of the times that when you come to a draft constitution, whenever there is the mention of civil society, if we as FPO come under civil society, then most of the times we will sort of be written off. So we have to get our own space, our own identity. Lastly, as a qualification as FPO, we have to know exactly what we are supposed to do. And as Dr. Ian said, it's not an easy journey. We have just started off, so we have to continue doing it until we get to the right momentum. And right now in August, we've got what we call the Religions for Peace Forum. If we can use that forum to make an impact, especially on environment. So right now here in Kenya, especially after the UNEA, we started our climate for justice trainings. Out of that, we have come up with a lot of trainings. And as we continue, we will try to inform Dr. Ian, because we want Dr. Ian to work closely with us so that we can know the way forward. Because here in Kenya, UNEA 4 for us was just a beginning. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much to Sheikh Mohammed. That was very short and but also very insightful. So Lily, I hand back over to you for the final Q&A, short Q&A.
Thank you, Sheikh Mohammed. Thank you, Matthias, for this creative engagement. Now we have a very short time to receive some questions. You can type them in the window and on the left-hand side, and then please assign the question to a person you would like to answer your question. And otherwise, if the typing doesn't work, you can also raise your hand by clicking the button on top of the presentation, and then we can enable your microphone and you can ask your question verbally. So we will wait like 2 or 3 minutes, because we are already over time, and then we will conclude the webinar.
Well, it's not a question or comment. I just wanted to assure you that we will be sharing
Yat raised
shortly
his hand,
two
so
reports.
please,
One
Yat.
is a logistical report, mentioning everything that has happened and the minutes of the meetings and so on. But we are also working on a thematic technical report that will synthesize your interventions and probably the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Yat. That's very good information, and we look forward to receive this report. So we have a comment, I guess, from Rudolf, who says it is critical to enhance the impact of FBOs on the ground through linkage to partners. Yes, I think we all agree, and I think this webinar is also a great way to get in touch with other partners and to join efforts. Are there any other questions? Okay, it looks like there are no other questions. Then I would like to thank all of you, especially our speakers from all over the world, from all the different religious traditions. Thank you so much for joining, and thanks for the exchange. Even though we continue to have some technical problems in our webinars, we are trying to get better. And it was very great to have you all here and to hear your reflections and to hear kind of your thoughts on the UNEA and on the engagement of faith-based organizations with the environment. And I think we have heard many ideas, and also there are many concrete ways forward for cooperation and also for attending different conferences that deal with the issue of environment. So thank you all very much. I would like to conclude, and I would like to tell you that we have a website of the World Evangelical Alliance Sustainability Center, where we will always upload our webinars, the recordings of our webinars, and also other resources that are related to our work. So please feel free to check out our website. And when we have the next webinar, we will announce it on this website. And yes, sorry. And if you want, please follow us on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, where we will also post everything that is going on at the World Evangelical Alliance Sustainability Center. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a good rest of the day. Thank you. Bye.